What's up, T-Tam fam? Good morning, Eric here for Sunday, January 25th. Um, it's cold here in New England, and we are about to get absolutely smacked with about a foot of snow um, starting starting today, and then going on through the night. So it's going to be a bit of a long weekend. But the time is 7 a.m., 7:01 Eastern time. So let's get after it, talking about like um, last episode where I was um, choosing peace over potential, right? And with that being said, this episode is more about when you stop chasing, how everything gets quieter, and I'll kind of go into that with this. So let's get after it. I didn't realize how loud my life was until I stopped chasing anything and everything in it. And this episode is about what happened when I stopped chasing people, stopped chasing explanations, and stopped chasing emotional closure. So let's kind of reframe chasing beyond relationships. What does chasing look like? You want answers. You want clarity. You're refreshing messages. You're replaying conversations, seeking reassurance, explaining yourself constantly. That's one of my downfalls. Hoping to understand. Hoping to be understood by everybody, and now knowing that's impossible, not going to happen. And then at some point, I was trying to control the outcomes because of all of the said above. So when you sit there and you're in a certain state of how you want things, and realistically, you have to um, and it took me a while to kind of understand this, but I truly understand it now. Is I may say the sky is blue. Okay. Somebody may say the sky is red, and that would intrigue me. But if they were simply saying it to oppose me or try to get under my skin, I would ask questions, and then I would get ambiguity to follow, or I would be playing Ring Around the Rosie, right? And not getting the answers that it needed. Now, I say the sky is blue. That is my choice, my decision. You know what I mean? So therefore, I don't worry about what that other person has to say because I'm not seeking anything from them. And chasing isn't about wanting someone. It's about wanting relief from uncertainty. And that's kind of this key line here is when it comes to relationships, you're searching for everything, and you tend to overthink and whatnot, but then you apply it to your day to day. And I've realized that in my personal life and my professional life, there was two different versions of what I would say and how I would do things. But realizing that, if I say something and I know it's true, right? Because I'm not going to sit there and chase facts that I don't know about. Like if I do the research and I dig in and I find out that it's true, that's my answer. And I can't force somebody to see it my way, or I can't talk somebody into seeing it my way because they have their own way. And at the end of the day, you're two totally different people. Whether you're siblings, whether you're best friends, whether you're lovers, whether you're colleagues, like that's what you have to understand is that everybody has a different perception of how they view things and how they see things. Um, so let's get into why we chase, right? We chase because our system nervous system is activated. I tell you this, the nervous system is a freak of of a system within us, and it's amazing how you revert back to certain ways that you were taught growing up. Ambiguity feels unsafe. Silence feels threatening. We want emotional resolution. Yeah, that was me. I needed that previously. We equate movement with control. Oh yeah, things are going good. We have a real good grasp on the situation. Okay, we think effort equals progress. Now this is something where you can be putting in all the effort, but if it's not reciprocated or it's not accepted by that other person, it's not progress. You have one person moving forward while the other one is staying right there. So and the other person is back here. So, so when we chase it's a nervous system response. It's not a personality trait because we are trying to get a resolution. We're trying to close a loop that is continued that is continuing to play over and over and over and over again. So, with that being said, this is the cost. The cost of chasing. Now, in my experience with me, it was, I had found that I was, when I would chase after someone, it was for the wrong reasons. A lot of it, it was my overthinking at times. It was my emotional state, and I'll be touching on those. And then certain attachment loops, that I had, and they all come from, stemming from my childhood and how I was brought up and certain things that I was exposed to. So I can see that now, and I've seen it for a while. But before, I wouldn't acknowledge it. I'd be like, oh, what the hell? I kind of make up excuses in my head. But when I sat there in the discomfort and really kind of broke everything down, it all made sense. So let's go over some of the things, chasing creates. Mental noise. Your mind is constantly going. You're thinking about every single scenario, every single conversation, every single thing that you had. Which then turns into emotional exhaustion because you have a lot going on. You're trying to break everything down, and trying to get answers. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? Which turns to your loss of your self-focus because you are not putting yourself first. You're putting yourself way at the end of the line because you want to make things right. You want to get the answers that you're looking for. You want to have this resolved, which then goes into overthinking and then to rumination. And then, again, your attachment loops. What have you experienced? Let me ask you this: if you were to look back at your previous relationships, what was the common factor? You have to ask yourself that. What was the common factor? Like, how did you react, in those situations? Were they all different? Or was there one constant or two constant things that happened to happen within that? And once you identify those, the one or two things that are constants, that's what you have to work on. And that's what you have to kind of find out. And then lastly, it's anxiety disguised as love. For those who are extremely anxious, like, oh my God, I love that. I gotta have that, I love him. That's your anxiety just flying out and telling you. But when you sit back and you really ask yourself, that's when you're going to get the true answer. So the more I chased clarity, the further I moved from myself. So, at that point in time, because, especially in my last relationship, it was a lot of ambiguity, and that sent me off the rails. Honestly, it did, because I'm a direct person. I prefer direct answers, whether they're good or bad. And I know I've touched on this, but when I had ambiguity, like I didn't know. And then my mind started to go, and it was just like, well, wait a minute, what the hell is going on here? So, and through this whole process, I've regulated in such a way to really just be like, well, the noise has stopped, and realistically, when that happened, it wasn't a big decision. It wasn't a dramatic promise. It was just kind of exhaustion. Like, I had worn myself to a point that I was like, I'm done. I am done, because I was emotionally saturated, and I was gaining clarity through stillness. And that's because I was sitting with the discomfort, and I was just feeling every bit of what I was going through, good, bad, or different. I didn't stop chasing because I was healed. Far from it. I stopped because I was tired. And you get to a certain point where you want to fight, you want to continue to fight, but then you also have to stop and understand that if you're fighting for something and you're putting in the effort, but you're not getting anything in return, of course you're going to tire yourself out. Simple as that. And that's what ended up happening to me is, I fought, and, going back to my divorce, I remember just fighting, but I was getting nothing in return. So I stopped. And the same thing with this is I fought. I was there. I was present. I was available. I was ready. But I got nothing in response. Well, nothing valid, or nothing concrete, I should say. But yeah, that's, so when I finally stopped, this is how the quiet felt. So at first, it's uncomfortable because you go from, talking with somebody you care about, that you love, that is, one of your best friends that you can tell everything to, is you're so used to that, you're so conditioned to send that text, make that call, see them in person, whatever it is that may occur. Now you don't have that. And you start to feel empty. And that's unfamiliar because you were with somebody for a period of time. With me, it was almost 2 years. Things start to seem boring. And like, oh. And then lastly, it, feels like something is missing. It's missing. That connection, that interaction, that's why all of the above is you go from driving 100 miles an hour down to 0. You just hit the motherfucking brakes and everything stops. That something missing was the adrenaline of emotional instability and capacity from your partner. And realizing that was another pivotal point throughout my healing journey with this. But yeah, I mean, you you miss those dopamine hits. You miss, how that person made you feel. You miss how you how you how you made that person feel. And when you're conditioned to do something like that, and you're honest, and you're just forthright with everything. It's really kind of, um, when that's gone, it's not like it's a slow fade. It's a fucking guillotine, man, off with the head. That's exactly what it was. One day they loved me, the next day they didn't. And it's crazy how we can go, um, from that point. But again, it's all in how people handle things. Some people handle them. Everybody handles things differently. Some people need to cut it off because they can't. Because they can't. They can't. They don't want to see anything because they made a poor decision. They don't want to see the future, so they have to cut it off. And then you got others that taper and be like, oh, this and that. So I mean, to each his own. How whatever your journey is and how you choose to do it, just understand, like, that's your choice. Excuse me. But with the quiet came the transformation, and this is something, to this day, um, is being able to, increase my mental space, emotionally regulate, clearer thinking, better sleep for some, um, self-trust, presence within yourself, and you now have a grounded energy. And and it's funny because I was training a client, um, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and we were having a conversation after, and they go, you're very grounded and unflappable, and I'm like, hey, I appreciate that, and it was a little boost in the sense of what I'm doing is now reflecting in my day to day. So how I'm handling this and how I'm moving forward is reflective, and I took that as a great compliment, simply because it's something I've been working hard towards and moving towards. So you know it was good. You know, you may think that the quiet is lonely. No, the quiet wasn't loneliness. It was peace I wasn't used to yet. Why? Because I was just, uh, being around, um, her and the kids, and everything, and then my daughter, and all of that, as plan this, plan that, and honestly, I miss that. But in the same token, it you know with this has allowed me to recenter, refocus, and um, get myself, put myself first, and that's what I've had to do. Put myself first, along with my daughter. So then comes the new standard. I don't choose people anymore. I don't chase closure. I don't chase emotional explanations. I observe, I choose, and I respond. So here's kind of a thing that I've implemented recently is, those who want to be in my life know how to reach me. It's that simple. Um, if somebody reaches out to me and, having conversations and whatnot, and, I send my questions, and that's it. If I'm talking to whoever and I send a question and I don't get a response, hey, I'm not worried about that because I've said what I've had to say. And if they like it, great. If they don't, hey, guess what? They don't. But here's the thing is, trying to start, platonic relationships with people, it's a difficult thing because, you have that period of feeling people out and trying to, understand like where they're going. But again, I kind of say straight up, excuse me, straight up, you have your opinions and I have mine. But we can be adults and we can agree to disagree. So, kind of keep that in mind as you're going through this. And, it's really, really broadened my horizon and really opened up perspective for me because, like, I'll hear things and, yeah, I may not agree with it. And that's okay because, they have their views and I have mine. Okay. You know, we can coexist. It's fine. So, you know, if, again, you know, if I send a question and I don't get an answer, I'm not worried about it. Or if I send whatever I send to somebody and they don't want to respond, that's fine. Or they respond with something else to kind of interact. But, if somebody says they need my help, yeah, I'm available. Let me know the time. Well, if they don't send me the time and they don't send me the place, guess what? Nothing I can do. I'm not going to sit there and reach back out to you when you need something from me. So by doing that, it's made me, it feels good simply because I'm now able to say no, or I'm able to sit there and just send something off and that's it. Just let it fly. If they choose to answer, great. If they don't, great. I'm not gonna, it's not gonna ruffle my feathers anymore. So, one final line I want to kind of leave you with is this. When you stop chasing, your life finally starts meeting you where you are. And that statement right there, that line, holds true because I see it within myself and in the progress that I've made to date. So, understand that you have to respect yourself. You have to respect your time. Because at the end of all of this, it's time. It's the only thing that we have is time. And if people choose to waste it and you continue to pour into that, then guess what? You're not gonna get anywhere. So, respect yourself. Understand that it's okay to say no. Understand that it's okay to have your own opinion or your own viewpoints, but be an adult about it. Understand that, it's okay to disagree with somebody. But, this has been really kind of an eye-opening when I stopped chasing because I didn't realize how much I chased. And that's kind of with everything. And that was, well into my 30s, mid 30s, I would say. But then, I slowly started to pull back on that, and now it's a different process. So, and it feels good. I'm not gonna lie, because I don't worry about stuff that's out of my control. With that said, I got the gym coming up in a couple of hours. Daughter's still sleeping, and then we'll see how much shoveling, snow blowing I'm gonna do today. Um, And we'll see if church is on the docket. We're supposed to get absolutely hammered with snow, so we'll see how the roads are coming up in a little bit. But with that being said, get up, get moving. Movement's medicine. Drink your water, get your protein, get your carbs in. Fuel your body with the good stuff. Hopefully, with this right here, this will be my last trip with this. Trying to kick this habit that I've been that I've had for since I was 17, and I did it earlier back in 2025, but then I kind of kicked back on. But yeah, trying to just improve myself. So with that being said, thank you all for showing up and watching this video. Remember, if you like what you see, like and subscribe. Love to hear from you on any of the questions that you have. But time to get after it. We're towards the end of January. We got one more week, and it's the end of January, so 2026 is already flying on by. Till then, I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.